Does this count as the music intro? Hey everyone, Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for another edition of Let's Argue, where I go online, I seek out your hot takes, your unpopular opinions, so on and so forth. But in this episode, I had a specific question that I asked. I was curious, in your opinion, what is the worst cover song ever? And let me say, you guys really came through with some suggestions. Yeah, first this Puddle of Mudd About a Girl cover. This is absolutely one of the most excruciating things I've ever heard a rock band do in my life. In fact, Puddle of Mudd has a bit of a thing going where whenever they do one of these stripped down acoustic performances for a radio station or something like that, it usually comes out pretty awful. What would the genre be? Like bad alternative or alt metal band does a stripped down acoustic set for, modern rock radio. As someone who was alive during a time when this shit was like at its peak of popularity, there was quite a bit of that going around, and let me tell you, it was never good. Hearing a lot of those bands whose main appeal was their volume and their aggression and their stupid, broed out lyrics strip things down to the acoustic version of a track to, I don't know what, get sensitive or sound a little introspective, it just didn't work because they sort of lacked the emotional depth for that format to really function in the first place. But yeah, this cover is truly awful, especially the vocal performance, This is the worst cover of all time by some distance. We have the Ali Spagnola cover of Roddy Ricch's The Box, which is one of those versions of a song where you have an internet content creator layering up their vocals, their hand claps, whatever found sounds they're next to, and then sort of doing a version of a track based on those elements. Which, I mean, this has been a pretty tried and true content format on YouTube for a long time. That's not to say everything that Ali does on her various platforms is great, though. There was actually a cover on her Twitter page that I find to be much more grating, and it's this one over here. What if Lil Nas X's Industry Baby was by Michael Bublé? So yeah, doing hip-hop and R&B songs in kind of a lounge jazz version. Yeah, to me that's like an ugly remaking of a track's cultural context, in my opinion. Alien Ant Farm's cover of Smooth Criminal. It takes a timeless classic and turns it into something that sounds like a parody, using a form of rock music that didn't age well and ultimately adds nothing to the legacy of the song. I won't disagree. I mean, the cover adds nothing to the legacy of the song for sure. It's just really a tragedy. You know, there were a few bands of that era whose biggest song was a cover, and they kind of came and went with the popularity of that cover. Honestly, I think you could do worse covers. I think there are worse covers out there. I think there are certainly worse Michael Jackson covers, especially. You know, Smooth Criminal, it's annoying, but the cover, but I don't think it's the most terrible under the sun. Riffs are tight, vocal performance is okay. It's not the most offensive. You could pick any of the cover albums from this band, but I just find the Maiden covers on this to be brutally funny. Yeah, 6 Feet Under. Their cover series records are absolute trash. There is not a single one of them that they've done that is not like a severe spit in the face to whatever the band is that they're covering. You know, honestly, it's just basically a death metal version of Kids Bop. They're just pulling together the most basic boilerplate elements of whatever song they're covering and just doing the most boring death metal rendition of it, and that's it. Everyone remembers the Behind Blue Eyes cover, but this one is worse. Limp Bizkit, Faith. Yo, this cover put Limp Bizkit on the map. When it comes to a lot of the material on their debut, I think the Faith cover is one of the few songs that is still kind of listenable, as a lot of the production and the performances on that LP were shit and were totally messy and not at all tight or together. Maybe I'm seeing the past with rose-colored glasses here, but I think the Faith cover is okay. Has time proven it to be, like, you know, culturally irrelevant or unnecessary? Maybe to a degree, but I mean, look at the recent Lollapalooza performance. There seems to be a demand for some Limp Bizkit right now, and I don't know, I think if you're gonna get into the Faith cover, now's a good time. G-Eazy's cover of Bowie's Lazarus. To take a song in which a man grappled with the reality of his imminent death and co-opted about your lack of self-control. So I don't even want to read this tweet. Like, I should have never asked this question. I erased this fucking cover from my memory. I honestly and genuinely did. And I was happy for it to be completely erased from my memory. And now you have brought it back. I forgot how awful this cover is and how awful G-Eazy's singing is. You got nothing left to lose. Like, every goddamn line sounds so nasally, sounds so soulless, and the production is just so spaced out to the point where it's bland. Everything about it sucks. Everything about it's terrible. Why did you remind me this exists? I hate you. I don't hate you. I love you, but I hate that you did this. Literally, this whole Danzig Sings Elvis album. Yeah, I mean, I've done a review of it. Not good, in fact. You guys, if you follow those videos, you should be well acquainted with this Danzig Elvis covers album. And yeah, the covers are awful. Production is trash. Singing is terrible. There are even moments where musically I wonder if Danzig is performing the songs with the accuracy that he should be. And while I appreciate that he chose some deep cuts, there were some odd numbers that he covered on this one as well. But yeah, performance is bad, production bad, inaccurate versions. It's an awful collection of covers. It truly is. And Elvis is such a huge and beloved figure. There are a lot of covers of Elvis out there, and a lot of bad covers, frankly. And you know, you would figure that after all these years, it would be difficult to come out of nowhere and just be like, you know what? I'm gonna make the worst collection of Elvis covers. But Danzig did it. Totally unapologetically too, despite the fact that Elvis has been one of his biggest influences like forever, and he's has been, or has proven himself to be, one of the more respectable vocalists and singers in punk music. But at least at this point in his career, those chops and that talent that made him so magnetic to begin with are just not showing up, at least on these tracks. Dorian Electra, 645 AR Happy, no way. This is a fun cover. This is a fun cover. I'm not gonna say it's better than the original or anything, but it is insane. It is one of the most nutty things I've ever heard in my fucking life. And I think, you know, regardless of how weird it is, and unlistenable to a degree in some pockets, I think despite those things, the world is better for this cover existing. I think this cover opens up, you know, new avenues for interpretation when it comes to covering songs. Any cover of William Shatner's off of Seeking Major Tom, a full album of mostly space-themed covers, such as Rocket Man and Space Oddity, which includes weird spoken word lyrics, poor singing. Look, I feel like a lot of those tracks on an individual level were a vibe and were pretty cool and made you think about the songs and their lyrics maybe a little bit differently than you might have otherwise. Was like an entire record of this shit from front to back great and necessary? No, not really, as it did get kind of tiresome after a while. But look, I think those original tracks that Shatner was like really building some heat off of, those were kind of cool. John Lennon's Imagine by various celebrities at the beginning of the pandemic. Yeah, that's a pretty trash cover. I have a really good conversation and interview with Sean Lennon, of all people, which went over really well. And we actually talked for one moment about that version and covers of the song Imagine in general.
Do you have any thoughts on the Twitter video of celebrities singing Imagine?
It's my personal feeling that most covers of Imagine actually suck fucking ass. The worst thing that you could do to an Imagine cover is overdo it. And that's what a lot of people do on an Imagine cover. They just over fucking do it.
Sometimes when people cover this song, they're like, imagine all the people, oh yeah. And you're just like, dude, I hate this song now.
Or like this celebrity version, they kind of turn their little cover of it into some faux inspiring, oh, I'm helping you. This is my charity to you to lift up your spirits, and do a terrible sung cover of this song. It's just not good. I guess I can leave this by saying the one good thing about bad Imagine covers, though, is that how you interpret and how you perform the song instantaneously is a tell of how big your ego is. Disturbed, the sound of silence. I was wondering when someone would say this. Remember the old lady who lent an unwanted hand to restoring Yes, this portrait of Jesus ruined it, and she insisted on being paid for her work. This is the music world's equivalent to that story. Okay, yeah, I mean, I will say the Disturbed cover of The Sound of Silence is one of the worst covers of all time, in my opinion. I feel like it completely misses the subtlety and the beauty and the eeriness of the original and replaces it with awful nu metal bombast, and yeah, it's just trash. It's overdone. It's just so fucking melodramatic, and I think it hurts the soul. It really hurts the soul. It's bad for the soul to listen to that song. Even if you're listening to it ironically or listening to it knowing it's not good, it actually just like sucks you of soul energy to even just be anywhere within the vicinity of it playing. This last one here was submitted by Austin, and this is a cover version that I posted up on Twitter like a while ago of A$AP Rocky's Fucking Problems, and yes, Xavier Dunn's version here is really not all that good. Sure, you can kind of place it into the pantheon of other white dude acoustic covers of popular hip-hop songs. That's pretty much all it is. But I will say, hearing the lyrics, specifically the lyrics of Fucking Problems, sung in this context, is especially cringe. There's a lot of bad cringe hip-hop acoustic covers, like I was referring to earlier, but I feel like the lyrics of this track especially don't work for this format. So yeah, fuck that. So I think I will leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. You're the best. Love you. Mwah. Over here next to my head, it's another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano covers the worst of forever.